Policy meetings.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are live in Oriole Nation. Happy summer.
Good time.
Perfect time. We're getting going. Come on, sit down.
Am I still asleep tonight?
Just wait for Vicky.
Yeah, I think that's good. How's everybody doing? We are live. We are live on. Yeah. Good to see y'all. Mike, how you doing? Second mic's on. Yeah.
All right, we're all here now. We will call the order of the regular Board of Education meeting for the School District of North Fond du Lac today on Monday, July 24th at 7:05 p.m. So could I get a roll call?
Murphy.
Here.
Huck.
Here.
Kowalski here. Geckerman.
Here.
Jaeger.
Here. Excellent, we have everyone here. Our next item is report on public notice.
Yep. So they were posted on the entrance doors of the district office, FLC, BAMS, Horseman, and MDL Municipal Building on July 24th, 2023.
All right, and then the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Now our board mission statement.
Yeah, so our mission statement or purpose statement is we will develop policy that is representative of our community and set goals and lead our district by collaborating. And our agreements that we talked about in the past is stand up and own it. So when we're here today, we share where we're at and we own the work that we're doing and enjoy that too as part of it. And then the second term is power of team, is we do this collectively as a full group and community and do our best so we can best support our kids. And then finally, it's the growth, passion for growth. It's like we're constantly learning, we're constantly open for new ideas, and we're questioning and figuring out new things so that we can identify and the best solutions to moving forward that we can help others.
All right. And then our next item is the consent agenda. So 3 things on this consent agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, the June 26th board minutes, and then also our treasurer's report. So any questions on those before? Okay, so we can move to vote to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Murphy.
Yes.
Huck.
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Jaeger.
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes. All right, the next one is board members share a moment of pride. Rick, we've never started with you. You can go first.
I haven't really been around school much, but I just think it's worth a shout out to the coaches and parents who are helping kids this summer with their athletic training. Sarah's doing the running club, there's football stuff going on. John and some other parents are running basketball clinics for the kids. So just a lot of volunteer work to keep kids busy and out of trouble this summer. So I think it's worth a shout out.
Steve?
Actually, it's been very quiet for me also. Some time away and some vacation and Matt had a couple weeks, so there wasn't much happening on that level, so I don't really have anything this month.
Okay. I have, well, two. One I saw on our Facebook post around Team Compromise from Incubator.
Yeah.
I had a lot of success. Three students that were part of that. So just congratulations to them. And that program just keeps amazing me, I think, just with the amount of impact it's making. And then I do have a shameless plug. The 8th grade boys soccer team, summer rec team. My wife coaches it, but they won it all, and they're all from North Fond du Lac.
There we go.
So excited for that. And Mr. Gonzalez, I saw it in your PowerPoint update. So I was really proud of those young men. They work hard, and they're just great kids. So congratulations to them.
I just like to take daily walks around the village, and it was exciting to see the demolitions / construction at Shepherd Way in the parking lot there getting started. So it's exciting to see that get going forward. And also on the walks going by the pickleball courts and how busy they are in the mornings. It's cool to see that everybody using those facilities. So.
Rick actually sold mine for all the athletic things that are going on, which is wonderful. And then, yeah, for sure, the incubator, and that, I think it was since last time, right there on Channel 5, or was that a month and a half ago or 2 months ago? But that was all awesome. And, you know, not that I see inside the buildings a lot, but just knowing that all the maintenance stuff that takes place in the summer, and, you know, cleaning our buildings up even nicer than what they have been. So shout out to all those men and women that do that. And I don't know, do we still have kids that do that too? Do they help in the summer or no?
Not at this time, no.
We can't do that anymore.
Well, again, we just,
Oh, we just don't.
hard to find kids.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. Our next item is our clerk's report. So Vicki, that is all you.
That'd be me. We have a thank you that I will just send around from Mike Fedison. Actually for this summer, I guess, teaching this summer, so that was awesome. And then donations, $50 to the Fishing Legacy from Gary and Joyce Kellett Memorial, which is Kristen Rasmussen's grandpa. So that's all I have. So thank you.
All right, our next item is citizens' comments, so I'll pause and see, but I see a lot of familiar faces that are in the room. Anyone have a comment from the citizens' comment portion? All right, I think we're good. And then now we're gonna move on, Matt, superintendent's reports.
All right, thank you. We're gonna start right away. We got a big agenda here today. So Mike Clark is with us from Baird, and he's gonna work with Maria just to talk about and discuss, you know, current status within the state, as well as how that plays within our round 2 here in North Fond du Lac. So I'm gonna turn over to Mike and Maria.
Partly what I want to touch on, obviously the district had this referendum, just kind of want to review that in terms of the impact for the referendum, and touch on a few things that's happening around the state in terms of increases as a result of the state budget. I'll start out with the debt side, and we're on track with the very good news. If you recall, we were projecting the impact of the $800,000 operating and as well as the debt to be around zero. We're still anticipating that. We did do the defeasance, and we talked about that the last time I was here, how that $1.6 million additional expenditure last year was going to generate additional state aid, and the July 1 aid estimate is kind of on track with the model budget, about 40% aided on the tertiary level. So that generated about $660,000, the additional $800,000 expenditure, generating additional aid as well from the referendum. So about $900,000 additional aid being generated. And so we have no change in thoughts as far as the impact to the debt. We think the tax rate will be taking into account that additional aid, because again, that $660,000 of aid being generated was a result of the debt transaction. So nothing has really changed there. We'll still have good news as far as the referendum. The one area that I think it would be important for the district to keep in mind is the state budget, and you're one of the districts really impacted by the low revenue limit ceiling going up to $11,000. That's going to generate over $900,000 additional revenue limit authority for the district, or again, when I said authority. And I know Marie has done some preliminary, but I just did a calculation earlier today that if you just would have gotten the 325 every other district received, the additional amount above that, take you up to 11,000, had about an 80 cent on the mill rate impact. About $515-ish thousand, depending on where your enrollment comes in. So you're not alone in that case. There's several districts that I work with personally, and many of the airworks who are getting that jump. We're all kind of facing that same situation in terms of that additional authority is great, but there's the tax impact side of it. And what really kind of caught people off guard on this was they made those types of steps, but typically they transitioned it over a 2-year period. So when they went up to 10,000, there was an intermediate step. The first year of the biennial budget, and then the second year you went to the full 10. I think it would have been the 900 or 9,400, and then up to. So anyway, there was 2 steps. So they transitioned. Here they just went right from 10 to 11, and which is really creating some of these bigger jumps in revenue limit authority. And again, the revenue limit authority, when you spend it, then you get the aid. So the second year, if districts choose to use that additional authority, as your 40% tertiary, the second year, if you collect those dollars and spend them, the next year you'll have that 40 cents aid to offset the second year, so that impact won't be as great. So that might take a couple of years to kind of transition into it again, if the district utilizes the full amount. So my debt side, we're in great shape. It's just the operating budget and that big increase is which creating some difficulty. And then you will have the 325 going forward every year on top of that.
Just a question, you said we're getting 660K of extra aid based on what we do with the debt.
Correct.
Will that reoccur next year, or is that a 1 year?
No, it's just because it was a one-time, every year for aid is what you spent the previous year. We don't have that. Now, what we do have is you'll have a little bit higher scheduled debt payments. So we don't have a defeasance that paying a future payment. You'll just have your scheduled payment will be a little bit higher because we knew we had that aid coming in. So that'll generate some more aid, but actually your levies will start to trickle down in debt service going forward, or after this year, they'll start to trickle down a little bit. Because, the rate came in pretty good. And so that larger expense, the defeasance expenditure will go away, be replaced with the new debt, but it won't be at the same level. But, there's other factors like your enrollment, which seems like it's gonna be positive again. And then obviously your valuation. When I did the 80 cents, that was assuming just using last year's valuation. Now we'll be supplying the district a equalized valuation estimate on August. Well, the municipal numbers come out August 15th. And what we do is we take those and kind of interpolate that, what that might mean for the district, and we've done that for the last 15 years. So you have a little early indication of what your valuation might be. I think your valuation is probably, looks like it could be strong again, just given some of the demand for homes and some development that's taking place. So we'll have more information, and obviously the final state aid number is always kind of, a big factor. We don't know that until October 15th. And there's a few things going on because DPI on their initial estimates, they didn't include all of Racine School District's expenditures. So I think it was like $30 million of aid that they were shorted in the estimate, not in comments, but just in July, honestly. So we'll have to reconcile that. So that takes aid out of the pot. But there's some other things happening with districts who are using ESSER funds to balance their budget because they do those estimates on budgeted dollars. But if you're claiming ESSER funds, then you don't get, and you're covering expenditures with ESSER funds, you don't get aid on those expenditures, so they'll put more money back into the pot. So it's, there's a lot of things, but I think as a whole, you know, if you were, again, just gotten the 325, I think your overall tax rate would be dropping. Because again, at 80 cents, and your estimates are in that 870-ish range.
Mhm.
You know,
Eight, yeah.
so you'd be right around $8, maybe a little bit lower. So it's that increase that's really driving what the initial projections are. But I want to emphasize, you know, anything right now are just projections. But again, if you use the full amount, I think it's likely you anticipate an increase in your tax rate. To what degree, we'll know more in a few months.
Mike, do you want to talk about the kind of pros and cons of not maximizing that revenue limit?
Well, it's, you know, given some of the inflationary things that we've seen as far as districts and how they're addressing staffing costs and CPI increases, you know, whenever you have an opportunity to access those resources, and kind of get it built into your base, I think is helpful. Now, you always have the option of getting to the 11,000, maybe transitional, you know, step into it possibly. But given some of those uncertainties, the 325 for 400 years, right? Something like that. I'm only worried about the next three or four myself, but 400, if you take that as a percentage of what you're collecting, it's a fairly small percentage. And, you know, you're probably gonna be looking at 4 or 5% CPI next year. You know, again, but how that translates to salaries, but it definitely, you know, could hit other costs associated with the district. So, you know, most districts find it very difficult to not access those dollars when they're made available. The other thing is, in your case, because you have one more year after 25, 26 will be your last year of the 800,000. Any dollars you can collect now will lessen that need if and when the district goes back out to voters to renew something. So if you can build those dollars, it will lessen that ask. And again, as I mentioned earlier, because of your aid situation, the additional dollars, the additional effort from the taxpayers will be lessened next year if you ask for those same dollars again next year, because you'll get if you spend it, if you just levy it and put it in fund balance, then you don't get aid on it. But if you spend it, that includes moving it to Fund 46, Fund 73, Fund 73. Okay. You know, those types of things, or put it in, you know, however you choose to spend it. If you spend those dollars, then the next year, that same dollar that costs the taxpayers $1 this year will only cost, assuming your aid stays about the same, 60 cents the second year.
Can I, just for everybody in Fund 46, just so everybody knows, right? I mean, we're talking
Yep,
capital projects, right?
capital projects.
Yeah.
Yep, that was the account that we set up several years ago, where we had to start that clock ticking for 5 years. So now we're able to access that money.
You know,
And anything that we put in there, we can use for projects around, I mean, for anything athletic wise, the fields, brooks, anything like that.
yeah, and I guess my last comment in terms of, you know, deciding whether to access those dollars again, being a growing district, keep in mind that you get 1/3 of your revenue authority the first year of students here and 2/3 the next year. And it's really that, it's the third year before you get the full value. So sometimes there's maybe pressure on budget, even in a growing district, just because of the timing of getting up to the full revenue value of those students, it takes 3 years to have those additional dollars to kind of help that transition districts find it helpful.
That's that rolling average that we talk about. The other thing I was gonna mention is, going from 10,000 to 11,000 revenue limit per student, that 10%, that really doesn't even keep up with inflation because we haven't seen an increase.
Well, and especially if you take it over a period of time,
Right.
you could make a case that this year, that increase
This year, it did.
matched it, but it didn't make up for what you lagged the last few years or what you're facing the next few years. So, I think, it's important for the districts throughout the budget process to make sure you're communicating, why some things are changing, why there might be a tax rate increase. I think we just model, we could do some modeling to see what next year looks like and maybe say, this is happening this year, but next year we would forecast maybe that leveling off or dropping even possibly, depending if you choose to spend all the money. So we can help maybe put some things together to kind of communicate kind of a 2 or 3 year window of what's going to be happening with the state budget versus just looking at a snapshot, because there are fluctuations in budgets. Everybody likes a trend down in levy, especially, or levy rate, but especially levy, but there's just changes in the state budgets that sometimes make that difficult to achieve. But I guess the other thing is important, I guess, to, communicate that this increase isn't generated because of the referendum, because of the state budget now is, I think that's because if you continue to grow, at some point you may need to go back for a few classrooms here and there. So I think it's important to organize those communications. Not that everybody listens, but if nothing else, you can always point back to that was discussed and communicated. So I think that would be something to keep in mind as you start to make some of these decisions and some of this other information comes together.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious or nervous is the right word about what happens when this 800,000 runs over. I mean, what's your feeling on the odds we'll have to go back and ask for another operating referendum?
I think it's probably likely. I can't think of it. I'm sure there are, again, I just can't think, but if there are districts who have had operating to cover operational expenditures, I can't think of any off the top of my head that we're able to move away from that entirely. And that's why, if you can kind of build your base to kind of minimize what that ask might be in the future, maybe even hold it flat. I know Denmark was able to hold theirs flat for a few years, but this last time around they couldn't any longer. And they're operating, I think they're on their fourth year, third or fourth. And it's just very difficult. So if you would be able to move away from it, it would be unique.
What's the percent of districts that are successful on their next referendum?
It actually goes up. Depending on if your amount is fairly close to what you asked for before, because then you're basically saying, you've been giving us 800 and we're gonna ask for 800 plus something maybe, And so the second time around is more successful. I will say, however, though, that referendums as a whole this last April did not do as well. And especially some of the operating questions. There's still over 50% success, like 58, I think, on the operating. I haven't looked at that in a while. So it was still good, but that had been trending closer to 70, 73%, somewhere in that range of success. So I think anybody who's going this year also is going to have some possible confusion when they hear, state budget gives school districts $1 billion. Most of that goes into aid. Those aren't spendable dollars. And that was the problem with the last biennium budget. And so it does create some confusion, and it does, I think, as always on referendum, communication is critical. But, hopefully you can move away from the operating question. I would say if state trends are, if you stay with, it's unlikely. It probably just comes down to what amount you have to go back to the voters for. And if you could, keep it as close to the same dollar amount or possibly a decrease, which again might be a bit of a challenge. I think that increases your odds of success if that's the choice that's made. But we've talked to so many districts since the state budget's put in place, and the state budget, for those like you who were able to jump up to the 11,000, it may delay the need to go to referendum if they haven't already, or it may lessen the amount that they asked for. But if they forecast out 4 or 5 years, they'll be back.
It's inevitable. Yeah. What you had mentioned too about like, I don't know if we're talking about increases in here with what you're seeing across the state in terms of, is that part of our conversation here too, just in what you're seeing for employees and staff and within this arena? I was talking to a district today who they are looking at a minimum of 8. But I talked to a lot of districts who are in that 3 to 4 range. Wauwatosa, I guess, is the high one that I've seen, that was close to 12.
Which was, if you read the story, they had freezes and.
Oh, yes, right.
There's a little bit.
Right.
To
Yep.
that.
Yes, so, and I talked to Keith, I work with Wauwatosa, and there's a little history to why, because they had basically been holding flat for so long, they felt they just couldn't, and they had to kind of make up some ground. And so it's kind of all over the board, and that's the important thing when you look at what you might read about in terms of districts doing for staffing increasing, is what else is going around there? Are they doing something with their healthcare to make it allow them to do a 6% increase because they made some changes to the healthcare to free up some money there to put on the. So just reading the headlines or just getting a number doesn't tell the full story. So I think it's important if you are looking at some comparables to talk with them and see exactly, okay, what else did you do? Or did you just, and again, it's different because of the ring around Madison, they've had some pretty big increases, but some of those districts have passed some, and these are growing, some of them are really growing districts, and they've passed some really big operating questions to allow them to do those types of things. And I think that's what's gonna happen around the state, is you have some areas like there that tend to be very successful with referendums, and you have other parts of the state that's more challenging, and it's gonna create a bigger divide. I think with going to 11,000 for the local government, sitting close that divide to a great degree. But still, if it continues going forward without those types of adjustments, it's gonna continue, because we're on a track that those differences between the high and the low is just getting bigger and bigger for many years, So yeah, salaries are kind of all over the board. Some people are saying we just can't afford it, and some people are trying to find a way and maybe doing some things with healthcare or passing referendums. Or doing it without knowing exactly how they're gonna do it. There's a few of those. So.
I'll share this document with you that I got from John.
I get some of John's stuff, not necessarily usually just the CPI stuff he said though.
Oh, this one, yeah, he did a statewide compensation comp document, and right now the average is around, if you take out that 12%, it's about 4.6 for teachers.
Yeah.
Who reported so far?
Any other questions for me or things under the state budget? Again, we'll be working with the district. We'll be supplying information as it becomes available. We've already talked, we've been sharing the model a little bit. We've been looking at some early numbers and making sure things seem in line. So But what I touched on tonight are kind of the big factors I think that the district will have to consider over the next few months in terms of how they want to approach it, so.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Anybody else questions?
Thanks. Sure. Great to see you again. Again, anytime you have questions for us, just let us know. Right. Have a good night. Thanks, Mike.
Maria, do you want to segue into the financial review?
Sure. Just a little update on the 22-23 budget. We have audit this week. It starts on Wednesday, so by the August meeting, I'll have final numbers for you. But right now, it's looking like we'll put $150,000 into Fund 10 fund balance, and that will get us almost up to that 20%, which is board policy. So we've been working hard trying to get that back up there. And then about $250,000 right now will go into Fund 46, and that would help, that will maximize the aid that we can receive on that. But we want to do a little bit of both. We want to keep some in Fund 10 to bring that, because that's our cash flow. That's what we live on for the year. And then the $250,000 would be for capital projects.
You had said earlier on the Fund 46 that we had the 5-year, like, can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, back when we started it, I think we put $500 in there just to get the
Okay.
pot going. And then you can't touch that. You can build on it, but you can't access it for 5 years.
Okay,
So we've way surpassed that now. So anything that we put in there now, we can access right away.
and is this the first, like, how much do we have currently?
We don't have anything in there.
Okay,
right
so this
now.
would be okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
We did, and we spent it down.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're building it back up again. And we're working on some deferred maintenance, like a schedule. I'm working with Dave and Matt on that. So just for planning, and this will be good to have, just to be able to plan those deferred maintenance projects.
And that comes into our key performance indicators as well. Like when we talk about facilities, having a 5-year facility plan, being able to accrue some funds in there so that we can hit specific hotspots that are coming up or needs, and we can start saving and investing more of that money. And because you don't know when a roof is going to be needed, or and there's $1 million. So I'm really trying to be smart about putting that back in. We've also asked principals. We sent out a form a few weeks back, probably before I went on vacation, but just asking them, what are those needs within your building that you think that might need some pickup, or other areas. And I know we're very gracious for the referendum, but our buildings age fast, and we want to make sure that they're up to date and all good for our kids. So just prioritizing what that is, and we'll do like an annual walkthrough with Dave and myself and the building principal, just seeing are there certain spots that we can hit or maybe make happen so that we can best help whatever the area of need is at that time. So
Is there when you put money into it, do you have to spend it within a certain time?
No, I can just build.
And is there a desired threshold to be at, or is it just really up to the?
Not really.
Okay,
It's what we're comfortable
okay.
putting in there rather than into a Fund 10 fund balance.
Gotcha.
So that's all I have for 22-23. Are there any questions so far? Like I said, I'll have more information next month.
Well, Maria, I would just add that another good job. I know we start the year with projected deficit, and we plan conservatively, and throughout the year, all the various things happen, and we seem to always end up just about right. So
Yeah, and
Well
this year, and it came late, probably in the last month, where we got money from school-based services and Medicaid. They've still been catching up from 21-22. So we kind of got a little bit of a windfall, so that helped us in the end. Otherwise, we would have been closer to even. So that was a nice surprise that we had. And then, we've had the governor's thrown in ESSER money here and there. which we assume that's coming to an end now, but we just, you plan with what you have at the time, and then things happen during the year, like you said, both positive and not so positive. So, yeah, so it was a really good year. For 23-24, I gave you a big list of things that I started to build the budget on. So 4% salary increases right now built in the budget. And then the salary increases for support staff, less this group of employees that received an extra increase in February. Health insurance, I am estimating at a 13% increase. We'll have more information on that in probably end of August, beginning of September.
That's keeping the plan the way it is.
Right now, yes. I just had a meeting with Horton Group last week, and right now the projection is a 28% increase. So there's no guarantees that that plan will stay the same. In order to get it to this 13, we'll have to, and there are some, with going with a different company and a new third-party administrator and some prescription, the pharmacy benefit consultant that we'll be working with, we will be able to definitely get that down.
That's what Tim was talking about last time, Rick, where he had those other options. We just have to look at what options makes the most sense.
We have
Like
more
maintaining
tools.
and keeping that, reducing that, but there's possibilities out there for making that. But if we just kept standard, that's what you're,
28.
without any solution finding, which there is.
So our goal is 13. Let's see. I right now am using flat enrollment. We are assuming that's going to go up, but I don't know what that will be. So I've left it flat in the model. Just some inflationary increases are built in there. We are losing the mental health grant, which is $75,000. So that was taken out. Let's see, I'm trying to hit the bigger.
Which I want to give a shout out to Carrie Nish and others, they put a lot of time into that. And then, like less than a week ago, they came back and said, we're not doing it that way anymore. And it's been just allotted to all the districts. But they had put hours into, putting that grant together. So I just want to give her a public, thank you, because she and others within our district really put some great time into that. So I appreciate that. But we have to look at it a little bit differently now since it's no longer available.
And we had it for 4 years, so kudos to that team that put that together. I am using the July 1st DPI aid estimate that came out, and I used a 1% increase in equalized property values. So those numbers will firm up in the next couple of months, but right now they are conservative. And then what I gave you next are just some mill rate scenarios. So if we maximize our revenue limit, so that would be going to the 11,000 per pupil. And we maximize the Fund 10 levy, the mill rate would increase approximately to $8.66 from $8.15. So about 51 cents. Again, this is subject to change. It's based on enrollment. It's based on the equalized property values and the aid. So that would be, it'd be right around that 865 to 870. A flat mill rate, so if we just stayed status quo at $8.15, it would result in a deficit of approximately $437,000, almost $438,000. So that would be the under levied amount. If we went somewhere in the middle at about a mill rate of about $8.45, it would result in a deficit of approximately $217,000 or $218,000 almost. And that, again, that would be the under levied amount. Any questions there?
Yeah, Maria, has anything changed as far as historically, if you don't I hate to use the phrase tax to the max, but that's kind of the lingo that's used. If you don't do that, that affects succeeding years in some way also, right?
It does, because what you end with for a revenue limit is what you start with, so that becomes your base for the following year. So yeah, if you short yourself 1 year, that's gonna follow you for years to
But
come.
if, in our case, if we stayed under say under the 11, right, we'd be able to go back at least to that 11 is always the minimum, right? So say
11,000 you're
say
saying?
we went to, 11,000. So say we only went to 10.5. The next year, we could still go to 11, right? Because 11 is the lowest.
I need clarification on that. The last communication I got said in order to get that next 350,000, because it's 11,000 this year, and then, or 350, depending on where you, are starting. You would have to go to the 11,000 to get that next 350,000. Now, that's what I heard from another business manager, so I would have to get clarification on that.
That's not the way they explained it on that WASB calls that I
Okay.
listened to.
Okay.
So you're saying, Rick, if you take it in increments and you're saying do 350 and then, or whatever, and then you do another whatever next year instead of
Yeah,
going to
I'm
the
not
11,
saying we
not
should-
to the max.
And I'm not saying we should do that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
And
hear your questions,
I think
yeah.
the 11 is the minimum, right? So
Mhm.
if you go, like if we're around 10 or something, right?
we're at like 10.3.
So if we went to 10.5 or 6, we could still go to, do the 350 or go to 11. We'll
Yeah,
probably end up going to the max.
again, I have to, have to get clarification. So those are the mill rate scenarios, and, you can go anywhere in between there, but, anything lower than that $8.66 or 67 cents, would result in a deficit then, right now, the way the numbers stand. Okay, any other questions on mill rate? All right, next, I gave you some educator salary scenarios, salary increase scenarios. Again, 4% is in the budget right now. I've been following the average for the state, at least who's been reporting, what their increases are going to be. And 4.6 right now is the average of who's been reporting, and there are a lot of districts that have been reporting, and like Mike said, it's been anywhere from 3 all the way up to 12. So I gave you the impact of all of the, and CPI is was 8%. So I wanted to give you all of those increments between 4 and 8 and show you the impact of those increases. And this is just educator right now. So going to a 5% increase would cost the budget about $89,000 more in salary and the fringe that's related to the salary.
So then the way I understand it would be, if we did that, then even maximizing the mill rate at the 8.66, we'd be in the hole. We'd be in the hole.
Yeah, maximizing the mill rate right now would put us about even, or like at about right around $35,000 to $50,000 surplus. So this would, again, it's conservative. I really do think that that the budget can handle that. So,
I do too, I'm just
yeah.
making sure I understand.
Yep, absolutely. So those are the different increments that I wanted to give you, just to give you an idea of how that would affect the budget. And then moving down to hourly wage increases, we did a 4.7% increase for everybody for the last fiscal year. And then in February, we increased those 4 groups. Again, really to be able to retain them and to attract new talent in those areas. And those were the increases anywhere, for special ed aides, it was anywhere from 11 to 15%. And going down 3.63 to 9, 6 to 11.43, 7.4 to 17.56. So those were the increases. That was on top of that 4.7%. So then down below are the groups that did not get that extra increase in February. So I wanted to show you what a 1 cell, so if they just went according to the model, 1 cell down, so 1 more year of service, that would be the percentage increase that they would receive. So payroll and finance, it would be a 2.11 to 2.35% increase, and so on and so forth. So then I thought, well, in order to keep up with, or to get closer to what everybody else has been receiving, I wanted to give you that 2 cell jump. And again, using payroll and finance as an example, if they moved 2 cells, it would be 4.26 to 4.7% increase. And then that's how that would impact the budget. So an additional $3,000 in salary and fringe.
So you budgeted the 1 cell.
Yes, 1 cell is budgeted right now. Any questions there? I know I was going kind of fast.
So in the 1 cell, nobody comes close to inflation, right?
No.
Or nobody comes even close to 4.605.
No. No. So those are the costs then in the 2 cell, additional cost to the budget. Okay, moving down to the administrators. That, I know Matt has talked with you a little bit about individual administrators, so those, I believe, right, Matt, those would be on an individual basis?
Yeah, and then looking at the percentage in equation to whatever we can to best increase to be competitive to within the range of like the teaching world as well.
Did you plug something in the budget for that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I plugged in, I used, in the past, we've matched or come close to matching what the educators have received. So I put that in unless there was something Matt and I talked about that was a little bit different for certain people. So those are all in there right now.
And those would be just getting more, comparable to other districts and like in alignment with where we need to be. So I feel that we were just a bit shy in some areas that we should not have been.
You use those numbers in the budget.
Okay, so moving down, Matt and I talked, and this would be our recommendation for the 23-24 budget. 5% increase for all contracted employees. And I'm sorry, I forgot to change that. That wouldn't be all contracted, that would be all educators and some of the administrators. And then there are some anomalies again in there that would change that. But the additional cost would not change. It would still be $89,000. A 2 cell increase for the school administrative assistants, the district administrative assistants, and payroll and finance. And that would be an additional $12,300. And can you just slide down a little bit, please? Thank you. A 1 cell increase for the LPN therapy and therapy support. We have a grant right now that we can use for additional stipends. So my recommendation would be to use that grant to be able to add to their salary. So there's no additional cost there. Also hold the special ed aides, supervisory aides, instructional academic support, and custodial maintenance at the February 15th, 23 increase. So the additional cost would be 0. And maximize the mill rate, which would be about $8.66, so that we could afford all of these increases, which would be about $101,300. And that mill rate will change. It'll tweak one way or another, depending on those final numbers from EPI.
I have a question about the group that received the extra raise in February. And help me if I'm not understanding it right, but by not giving them a raise this year with the rest starting July 1st, right? The only real benefit we gave them was 3 to 4 months of a raise. Otherwise, by not getting the same raise again, that extra raise in February really wasn't a huge factor.
Well, we changed the cells in that column in 23, 24 for those people. So we really bumped up those cells. So they got the 4.7, and then they got that additional, those numbers.
You had it above right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go back to that.
So they didn't just
Or a
jump
little
to
bit more.
Yeah.
There.
They didn't
Here,
just-
Steve.
jump 2 cells, like from the old model, we recreated the model. So they did get,
Bumps in those
So that
lines.
was
Go ahead.
that was to level set and get competitive. The bump, the February one, the 4.7 from last year was for their work they're doing
Right,
the current
right.
year. So if nothing's done with that group this year, would we be waiting till obviously this time next year to do it for it? And will there be a gap again? You know what I mean? Like that's, I think, is that what you're talking about?
That's where I'm at too. It just, I struggle having people, especially with inflation where, I mean, if our argument was we made them competitive, now we're saying you're stuck for 18 months. I don't know how that stays competitive 18 months from now, especially with inflation the way it is now.
But with the extra, I guess I'm sharing this out too, with the extra year, they are going up that other cell too, in addition to what they were making up, within February. So they made their bump, and then next year, or this upcoming year, they move up that step again within that, which was reallocated to meet more of that percentage changes. So they are getting something from this, right?
they went up that cell, they kind of went diagonal.
Yeah.
So they went up their cell for being here an extra year in February, in addition to us increasing the cells. So they did move to that next year, they just moved to it early.
So they would not move to the next cell till next year.
Right, 'cause
When
they
you-
already moved,
Yeah.
they moved in February.
So when you shift on that wage scale, would they traditionally, like if I was in that role and go to that next year, would my increase just be on what that wage scale was, or how did that 4.7% come in?
The 4.7, we just redid that
Just scale,
entire,
okay.
we just
makes
increased
sense.
everything 4.7.
So what we would be at, if we said, oh, we would wanna add an increase, we'd be reworking the scale this year.
Yes.
They wouldn't switch level, or where they fall on the box that you're talking
Right.
about. It would just be those
Right,
percents. of
those cells, yeah.
Gotcha.
I just struggle on how if we made them competitive in February, how they'll still be competitive a year from now with no raise. And going 18 months without a raise, I don't know how we keep them. I mean, I understand the fact that we gave them a significant bump, but that's because we weren't competitive. So now we're finally competitive and we're saying, okay, now you're gonna wait 18 more months. I just struggle with that. Struggle with telling anybody you're gonna wait 18 months for a raise, especially in today's economy.
Did we look at ever like prorating? Like, cause they obviously got the bump, in February, so they got prepaid, right, for that increase. But the change between now and then, instead of a full year, could we look at what that percent would be? So that they're still on a cycle of every, you know what I mean? We're not losing the 18 months. It's the normal 12-month period.
So they would.
I mean, if it's
it'd be like a half
4.5%.
step?
Yeah, I mean, if it's 5%, because it's been, 6 months, maybe it's 2.5% that would change on theirs to stay competitive. I think what Rick was saying is the percent's not changing, right? Or am I mistaken?
No, right, I mean, if we wait 18 months, I don't know how if we give them a normal raise in 18 months, it seems like we would have lost what we gained in making them competitive.
Well, I see what you're saying. The idea was moving the starting salary, that's really what we wanted to address at the time. So those groups now are not starting below $15 an hour where they were before. So that was the main concern, is where we were starting people. And we communicated that we're giving it to you early, you're moving into your next cell early. So it was a combination of making that model competitive and moving those people early.
Well, in effect, though, all that means is they got a raise for 5 months from February. And then without getting one now in July, like everybody else, then, the only effect that they got was those 5 months with an increased raise. If they're getting the same in July and August of this year as they did in February, I don't know if I said that perfectly, but the same as what Rick and John are saying, I think it negates the effect of giving them the raise in February if we're not gonna follow that up with a raise now. So then, as you look back on it, we have an extra raise in there for them to bring them up. The February raise is an extra piece. They still got the 4.7 like everybody last year, and they would get whatever we decide starting July 1st of this year. But, I suppose you'd have to do some calculations to see if we switched and included them in the raise that we give everybody else starting July 1st, how much that would cost.
Yeah, and I'd have to look at too, how that affects everybody else, because you have to, that might create a trickle effect for the other groups as well.
So are you saying that right now they're even, or they're a little ahead of everybody? Oh, with the percentage and how much they're moving right now from February and then bumping them up?
So right now, they would have received, everybody got the 4.7,
Yeah.
but then those 4 groups got the additional 11 to 15. So they are receiving more than even if we increase the other 4 groups to self. So they've still received more than those groups.
Again, I would be looking at like a pro rate, like I'm hearing what John said, like a 2.5 versus like all the way, to show something, or you wait till next February again and kind of do an offset like where we're at right now, so it's not a full year or full 18 months, and look at it that way too, to say, hey, can we reassess where we're at the time and then come back to it? And I know it's tricky with budget, but we might have a better understanding, like, oh, we've got X amount of dollars where we could be able to do a little bit more of that time. So
Yeah, I guess, and I haven't thought it through a lot, but I kind of like John's idea, because then we get everybody back on the same schedule, right? If we give them something, if we wait until February, now we're gonna be stuck with that cycle kind of forever, right? When we've got a group in February and a group in July. Rather I guess it doesn't really matter to me because I don't have to do the work, but it would seem, make the change so and then get everybody back on the same cycle. So we're just.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, then you look at comp the whole way, right? Like you said, it might create some,
It would create a domino.
yeah, so I mean, if it's on the same cycle, you would be able to see that. I think a little bit more clear than trying to piecework what could come on additional raise.
And another option would be to do something for those 4 groups that doesn't affect the model, so that they stay where they're supposed to be. They've moved into the cell that they're supposed to be at, it might
Give them a
be
stipend.
4.
Yeah.
And do like a percent on
Mhm.
what they're, no, you couldn't, because that wouldn't match where they're at.
Hmm.
You could do a stipend.
So just a one-time payment and then
Yeah, right.
saying, here's that for this year.
Right at the end there.
You could do a stipend.
Where it's not like it's gonna be consistent, but then at least sustains till we get to the next, after 18 months.
But their base then stays.
Right.
What it is.
So then we don't have to redo the whole base
Yeah,
schedule and then,
because the base schedule's right based on the work in February
correct.
to be competitive.
Right,
That's probably a better option.
Right.
That was great.
it's
good
just
suggestion.
not, it doesn't build on their base, so their hourly wage would stay what it is.
Correct, but we took care of their base and their hourly wage with the increase, and now we want to take care of their 18 months of tenure, right, without being unnoticed with the compensation increase, whether it's a stipend or.
Mhm. That's an option.
Might be a good compromise.
But you still have to rework some of that so you understand like, what
Yeah.
can you give within that budget to be able to provide that stipend, or depending on what that stipend is.
And I can do that for the August meeting. If you'd like, we just delay this a little bit more.
Well, we could go ahead with the rest, and if we're agreeing that on the stipends, the right way to go. But you go ahead with this part of it and then just come back and leave that on the table.
Okay,
Yeah, because you're right on here, we're just saying no increase for that group as of time because of past work, and then we could probably do, like you said, a different
Right, 'cause
vote
this,
for
this goes
stipend.
into effect July 1st. Right?
yes.
So we wait to do anything here.
Yeah, there will be back pay involved in some
So I
of
just
this.
don't get this part taken care of. And if we're kind of in agreement that the stipend is the way to go, we can come back to that as a separate issue without holding up the rest of this.
I like that.
This obviously will just go up a little bit from what it was, it'll be just taking that consideration, but it's again, a 1 year until we get everybody back in that, to get that consistency. Yeah. Any other conversation about this until we get to some of that later in the meeting here? I just want to make sure we're keeping moving here within that frame. Maria, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Awesome
you're
job
welcome.
with all this work. It's super amazing. Again, echoing what Steve said before, just like making it happen every single time. And we're really thankful to have you in our district. So appreciate you. Next thing on here is KPI, just update. And I'm not going to take a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to kind of a little bit of, we talked about this last time. Well, that's referendum. Let me see all my multiple different tabs here. Here. Am I in the right order? Am I good? Yeah, okay. So this is what Ted came with us, and we were kind of doing that little process in the chart of like how things would flow into looking at a little bit different way of like how can we become more active into the work. And again, John and Steve and I met at one point in time, just saying like, what makes sense to start, trying to get more active within this arena so that we can, best help and you guys can be active participants within the work of our key performance indicators and us as a district within our goals. So the last time we met as a board in June, we gave everybody, some opportunities to like put stickets, or Post-its up on the dash and the different core areas, and learning academics was one of those areas, and honestly got the most Post-its, which is I think a good thing that our board is like really into obviously the learning portion of this, but it also then, starts making us wonder like, how do we go to that next step? And I'm like Key and John and Steve, even though you weren't really part of this, putting this together, but I'm just curious, like when we talked together in our meeting was like, how do we, when we see these areas of like pockets that we want to like play in more and be part of more, I'm talking as board members, what does that process look like? And, and we talked about a slow process, so we're not just going up and engaging and giving more understanding, communication to our staff, our educators, and, everybody else involved, and saying like, how does this like a concept of task committees or task forces work where we can take on something and for 90 days we knock it out and we have some pretty aggressive work within that arena and then get to know and learn more about what that might look like. And then in conjunction with, our educators, you are having a better understanding of those areas. So that's kind of how, we're not going to just unveil this like right away. And we were talking more about like October, November, kind of in that zone to start getting to some of these different buckets within the KPIs themselves. And John or Steve, if you want to mention any more as your memory kind of laid out there, but coming back with what Ted was saying is like, it would be cool if we could get some task forces together where, you all could be some more facilitators and some more learners and part of that process, if you so choose. I mean, this is something that is a pretty aggressive move for a board, but I think it is also very healthy too, in some ways. But just looking at each one of these different areas, here's learning academics. If you go to the financial, facility plan was a little bit more on this area, fund balance, one tick, but it's okay that we're not all in one because we got a lot of time to kind of play in some of those other areas as well. And then engagement and communications, you kind of see a little smattering of a lot of different things, but staff engagement seems like it got a few more ticks than others, and you still get student engagement and student activity engagement, also were some of those areas. And then finally, safe and emotional healthy school, just in terms of, where some of those things landed, some of the student behavior, kind of a pretty good spread. But it would be great for us to get together with either Ted or ourselves in another meeting to kind of like dissect a little bit more, like how we want to proceed together as a group and like what we want to, and what is that angle and how do we make that happen. But correct me again, my memory was you didn't want to come up in the front of the welcome back saying, hey, we're going to be putting these task forces together and we're going to come to you, and we don't want to.
No, I think in the notes that I had down for tonight were around our session together was to bring it back to the rest of the board, in a session that you were just talking about with maybe Ted facilitating, for us to kind of, now that we've got an understanding of areas that are important, that we think are top priority right now, how can we support that? And I think two things I wrote down. One is, I think all of it is for us to listen to understand, right? And it's really, we don't have to be the decision maker all the time, but we need to understand so that we can put policy in place. We can put, the funds to where they need to go to help support whatever that mission is. And then, as Matt had mentioned, kind of slowly introducing it, meaning if task force is something that the board would be interested in doing, or someone on the board would be interested in doing, we would want to make sure that we educate and share that with the staff and the team to make sure that they're supportive of it as well, right? Because it would be a joint effort and it would be different, but I think it would have some great result at the end. So I don't know, Steve, if there's anything else.
No, I think you summed it up very well, and it was a good plan. I hit them with it on the first day of school.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a culture shock to them as far as, they're like, what do you mean the board's gonna come and,
Right.
and it's, again, like John had said, it's more of a collaboration. If we want to be part of this and help all of this happen, not always. Yes.
Only grows our development as a board too,
Yes.
right? There's that side of it as well, that we learn more aspects in detail so that we can support. And Matt had mentioned a task force. If someone doesn't want to do it, it's fine too. If someone's really passionate about one of those pieces, then dive into it, right? And then you can share back to the rest of the board, right? So that we're all become resident experts in that space as well.
I totally agree on the collaboration part where we're not, by any means, I don't think any of us would purport to be experts on how to best teach kids. I mean, so I agree with that part. What I'm struggling with is, let's ease into this. I mean, if we're talking October, November before we start, it's basically another year as school year's gone by before we'd see any results from it. So I'm totally sensitive to how it's presented, and I'm still not, I think this meeting with us and Ted is essential so we can understand how we want to proceed as a group. But I'm tired of waiting, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been on for over a year and a half, and this is what we ran on. And there's been no significant improvement, and there could be a lot of work going on that we don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's part of the problem is that, or one of the solutions I think this will bring is more awareness to us as to what's going on. And so I totally understand the sensitivity part and that we're learning more than we're imparting knowledge on this group. But I don't want to go slow.
But I think, how you can walk into that without going slow too is, we talked about, like, there's no problem with calling a principal and saying, hey, can I come sit in, with that, because they want you to be that listening and learner, within that, so you have a better understanding, so you can best help. And I wonder if that's like the step before, going into full like task force of what this might be. The other thing too, at the same time, is we're still generating what those goals are going to be based upon these, KPIs in terms of where are we hitting not only as a board, but also as a contingency within our teaching and learning team, within our, AMHE teams, within those other areas of establishing some of those things that will hit and help out with some of those areas with kind of the overall KPIs. So I think there's still a lot of work in motion, and I think we can slowly baby step into it. But I would say slow is not the word, but how might you get involved sooner in different platforms so that you can have a better learning and understanding of what that arena is. And I'm sure all the principals would definitely nod their heads and say, yeah, come on in and be part of some of those systems. And I think we just need to lay out what are those options for you right now, and then what could that be with Ted, and just saying, how can we do that? So I don't know in terms of urgency and how much you want to meet in August or what you would like to do, but that's a potential where I could see what his calendar looks like before our August meeting at the end of the month, to see what that's like, or early September, just so we can get that knocked in.
And I think it could go faster, right? I think I like the call, and I don't know what everyone else on the board thinks about additional meeting in August. I'm for it, because I think that'll detect the pace we can go. And we also have to develop ourselves to be able to do this too. So that's why I think we were cautiously optimistic with our timeline, meaning October, November, because I want to make sure, and I think all of us would want to make sure, but I can speak for myself, I want to make sure if I'm going to join a task force that I'm A, providing value, and that I'm B, the mission of the board. And I've got to have a good understanding of that,
Right. No, I'm all for sitting down and deciding what roles we play and what the goals are as a group. I just don't want to wait to start that process.
Sure, and yeah, maybe we can see, I don't know if anyone else has an objection to maybe extra time in August to do that. I think that would be awesome.
Vicki, what are your best days? That's what I'm going to turn to you.
Vicki's got the phone already.
Yeah.
Mondays and Wednesday early, I just can't do.
Yeah.
They're my late nights until 6. So Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, really
Okay.
pretty much open.
I'll look at Tuesdays and Thursdays in August and just see if he's got any availability. If not, I will review with him, and he can even Zoom in or whatnot too, just so we can have that conversation here and get it going.
Or if he can even give us best practices, then we can.
Yeah.
One.
Cool.
I mean, I can do a 6:15, 6:30 Monday, Wednesday, but not sooner.
Okay. I will come back to that, in continuation with this conversation, so I'm glad we were able to get to that point with that chart. Flipping to the next topic here, keep it moving. Referendum, and Terry, you kind of, shared a little bit of this already, of just, walking through the district and, just kind of updating a little bit of where things are at currently. So I don't know if you've gotten past, ELC, section 4 right here is almost completed, other than the fence in that area, and I'm gonna defer to Dave if he's got anything else to say and work on that. But we're gonna see construction in this segment in a couple weeks too, as well, in terms of ripping out some of this area, as well as knocking down some of those zones as well. So Dave, I don't know if you got a couple minutes.
So, we're holding off on the playground right now as far as using it until the fence is in, and that's scheduled for August 7th to start. Looking at 2 days on that. As far as the tear down, the same group that's over at Trucker right now is moving over there, hopefully, middle of next week. So we should see some demolition going on relatively fast. That's pretty much that on the ELC side.
Yeah, and again, you can see like, kind of like the shape here that has to get tear down and worked on. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff going, and if you see it, you can just watch it. I mean, I just took a few pictures of the Trefford site of, again, this is kind of the model you're gonna see eventually here, and this is that play space area, in terms of, you've got your basketball center, I think grass is this exactly right what it is, or is it might be, yep. And
So
some,
there's a basketball court there, just a one hoop,
yep,
area and a little bit of hard surface for when they're riding their scooters around. That's fenced in, and then, the grassy area next to it. And then the big area, the brown area is the, playground. Currently today, they finished up on some underground drainage for the playground area, and, they've got most of the asphalt out. And they have to do a little bit of digging down now, and then they'll be probably for the concrete guys to start. I believe that fence around the playground is gonna go in at the same time as the ELC one. They're hoping to have this site completed, other than grass growing by the start of school. So you'll see blacktop lines, sidewalk running, and I'm sure black dirt in place.
so again, just a reminder, all this will be ripped out, or all the stuff is ripped out in here right now. So all where my cursor is going, I'm kind of saying that little back alley driveway too is gonna be all ripped out. So if not already, I'm sure it was done a day or.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
They just need that alleyway and then the sidewalk area. Not to get too specific, but what about the sidewalk along Minnesota towards the front of the building, or towards Garfield, I guess? It's an old blacktop now, and we
Yeah.
originally were planning it, we talked about taking that out also.
Well, there is sidewalk, regular sidewalk there, and they're poured to the curb with concrete, that we're not touching right now. For a couple of reasons. One is, during church, they park there, and a lot of people are gonna walk it on that, so, just almost easier to keep the concrete there. And
Well, no, actually,
are you talking Minnesota?
Minnesota across from the church, other church, right there.
Yep, Minnesota will be sidewalk.
all sidewalk.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
good, so that stayed in front.
So that'll be sidewalk.
It's all down here, Steve.
In the grass terrace.
And then who's doing it? Did we do this on bid work or something different?
Yeah, it was all bid. C.D. Smith is, our project manager, and then, so they went to bid. Mark Cardinal Concrete got the low bid on the concrete work. Asphalt we had two different asphalt companies, one, area, I believe, one, and I don't remember the other one. I got one site, one got the other. Bomer is the excavator on it. They were a little bit on that.
Alright, I'm just curious about that, because the board has always approved the bids, the recommended bids, so is that something that has to come yet, or?
As far as this project, we went, it was all low bid. So,
Alright, But as we get into some of the bigger stuff,
Yeah, that's coming up, that's not there yet,
Yeah,
so
bids are due this Friday on the Vesio Monday and North End Park.
we'll bring all those to you then, probably in August, because that's what we'll have.
yeah, and I'm not so interested, because they always, Smith knows what they're doing, obviously, and their recommendations are gonna be very important, but I think just to be able to understand what's happening next and who's gonna do what, and stuff like that is something for the board to understand.
And start on BAMs and the high school is, it's a determination of the date, so right now it's gonna be.
They're, so they got that phased out in, I think, either 9 or 10 phases. When they say phases, it's just basically boom, 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 it's how they get phase 1 done. Their projected big date right now on phase 1 is, August 28th.
Which is,
They say it's a very, very aggressive schedule.
just a couple other notes that are on this slide deck. We've been meeting with the branding team too from Bray, and just trying to capture some of the spirit and of the school as well. And so they're putting some different branding components. There's multiple different branding components in FLC, like, you know, the different continents and like the locations and like the welcoming areas and the signage and the languages above. Those are all like branding points that, you know, C. Smith or Bray had done before. So we're working with the team too to do a couple different things at the high school and the middle school world. Right now, it was focused on the commons in the high school and just working at some of those things. And we're trying to capture some photos from the past of like students, be it, you know, involved in the school system somehow, some way, either in activities or in class or athletics, and capturing that history and that legacy in that commons area, which is starting to look out pretty sharp, but it's not been completed yet. And then there's a couple different areas within high school and then the middle school as well that they're gonna be doing some work with. And then we're just gonna be starting to work with furniture consultants, which is a big deal, but we're trying to minimize all the choice and try to get as, you know, specific as we can with not having a whole bunch. And we're working with Do It is the company who actually works with the furniture. And so they're almost like a consultant to do the bridge between so that we can, you know, see what they're providing and what kind of design they're giving to us. But we're not sitting in the book saying, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna look to page 34 and we're gonna let some experts do that so that they can share with that. And then we'll make the choices on what that looks like and when that comes down to the end. But just takes a lot of that, the lifting of that process out of it, and will help us again design great space for our students. Any other questions on the referendum right now? Okay, I mean, this is awesome positivity. I love, you know, driving by every day or walking over there and just seeing some of the work that's going on. So I know Trevor Peoples are extremely happy too. I texted it right to Tiffany right away. I go, we're in process, and just super excitement with what we get to do. So good stuff. Welcome back, plan. Adam, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit here, and I'm just throwing this in terms of we're not a whole big process, but the August in service and some of the things that we're doing. But our kickoff, and we mentioned this at the last time, was August 21st. You're all welcome in the morning. We're gonna have breakfast starting at 8 at Horace Mann. We've done this traditionally. Please put it on the calendar if you can. It'd be great to introduce you all in front of everybody, just to recognize you. And I think it's really important to do that as well. But then get into some of like what's happening this year, and then bring Lucas Jaden is also going to be presenting in that morning too. And then getting into the PM would be more building and staff being able to have that happen. So that's the first part. I don't know, Adam, if you want to talk any more about like specific to, we have 4 days of professional learning. The other, I think, hotspot, not hotspot, I would say, but maybe an area of interest that you might want to just attend and like learn a little bit more about is our safety drills. I'm trying to read here if I can see this quickly. What afternoon we're making that? 22nd. 22nd. Yeah. So I think it's like 12:30, as it mentions there in the high school commons. We're all gonna meet together. We're gonna work with the village police department, and then we're gonna walk through scenarios and things like that. So that might be of interest for you too, just specifically talking about intruder or active shooter drills within that frame, which I think, everybody part of the safety team and the planner, extremely, happy that we're, making this happen so that we can have that practice. Unfortunately, we're in a society where we have to do that, but at the same time, it's really a need that I think helps people just understand, and providing that opportunity for everybody is a big deal. So I'm just highlighting some of the different things. We've got a back to school night is the Wednesday, August 23rd. So we're going to have FLC, BAMs and Horseman open for people to swing through. I think we're still kind of determining a little bit of the times, but I think for the most part, it's all set for people, but that's available for people to come in that night too, if you'd like to. I'm going to check with everybody here. Lauren, when are you guys, is it 4:30? Is that?
Yep.
4:30 to 6? Okay, and Mike, same, or 3:30 to 5?
3:30 to 5.
Okay, and then Dwayne, a little bit different or same as 3:30?
We're gonna hold steady with that one.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So a lot happened to that, and then we'll be done on the Thursday, and then we start the following week on Wednesday. So it's going to be action packed. The week before this, though, we have new educators coming in, and we can probably, I don't know if that's on here.
That's up on top, yeah, just that kind of 3-day.
Okay.
Brief.
And I don't know if there's a time where we could let, if they want to come in and meet the new people too, that'd be something that maybe we can kick out to them or as well. And
Yeah, for the board, yeah, I'll, really, any of that would be great to,
Right.
for you to, again, just back when you talk about, for you to see how that looks. I don't know if any of you have been to those before, but see what we discuss, and then it'd be great for our new teachers to know, like, wow, a board member here, that's pretty cool, so.
Right. And they have 3 days, basically. The first day, the first and the third day are a little bit more in line or in track that we're working with them, and that middle day is really for them to work with their mentors and to get a better understanding of the building and, talk with us too as well. So, good stuff.
Are you doing the, on the Welcome Back website, where in the past where that each new staff person has done a little bio or a picture?
We will provide something so everybody has an opportunity to see each of our new people, including a lot of administrators here as well. So yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Great question. Okay.
The only thing I'd add with that, maybe,
Yeah,
is just
please.
when we look at those KPIs, you're gonna see what we have planned directly ties to all that. So again, kind of that, are we basically walking the talk of, hey, these are our goals, and what are we doing now with our staff and with the time we have, where you're gonna see a strong connection to those goals with what we're planning there and then throughout the year.
Good. Okay, next on the docket, parent-teacher conferences, dates and times, and I'm gonna lean in a little bit on our administrators here a bit, but, when we look at parent-teacher conferences and how we run them, we're always trying to see how we can get more, participation, and then are we really getting the most out of what we can get out of this to best help our students as well as our families to have an understanding of where our students at, what does their learning look like right now? And we talked about this last year a little bit about attendance at, the high school and middle school, quite a bit less than what you would get at the elementary world. And like, how do we start fostering some more of that and bring that up? Or is there other ways of doing that? And we're truly trying to come up with different solutions to help with that and make that happen. And I think elementary too, and the same feeling, like why don't we have some stuff during the day? And that's kind of where I'm gonna segue over to Lauren, like just talk about some of the thoughts that you had as a staff, some of the things that you heard from parents, some of the things you heard from, your staff itself, and walk us through kind of like the impetus for why we even went to look at some of this stuff.
Yeah. So I think in general at the elementary level, we do have pretty good participation. I would say it ranges between 85 and 100% depending on the classroom teacher. All of the teachers do track each, conference window, how many of their families do show up. And I would say a lot of times our teachers will even, go above and beyond that conference night to make sure that they can meet with the families, even if it falls outside of that time. But one of the things that we were trying to accomplish was really to meet, I think, the varying needs of all of our families and their schedules. we did a barriers like engagement survey. I think it was probably in February. And one of the things that I would say we rated a little bit lower on question-wise was how big of a problem is the following issue for becoming involved with your child's school day or your child's school, and it was how busy the parent schedule is. So really trying to think about how are we providing opportunities that, you know, fall outside of just the traditional parent-teacher conference model. So we dabbled a little bit this year with Donuts at Dawn. We always do YMCA night. We tried a winter carnival and then a school day carnival. So we're trying to find a variety of ways where we can have families, you know, come to FCC. And one of my goals as an administrator last year was I really want families to feel welcome, and I want them to feel that we're providing opportunities for not only them to come, but also for them to come with their child and experience, you know, some of the things that happen, you know, throughout the day or even in the evening, and have those times to, you know, again, interact with our school community. So like Matt said, we want to be able to provide like a daytime conference to be able to meet the needs of the families who may not be able to make it in the evening. We're looking at doing a grade level meeting night in the beginning of the year with the purpose to really kind of share what are some of those academic goals, and also really emphasize to families that we want to work together as a partner, you know, to make their child feel success. So that would be something that's a little bit different than that traditional model, as well as kind of dabbling in a little bit, you know, Trevor Way had shared a lot about their student-led conferences and some of that work, and I'd really like to see some of our kids have the opportunity to, you know, share those goals with their parents too.
And I don't, Mike, if we just want to go around, and I mean, it's similar concepts and the same things. And the beauty of like some of the conversation that we were able to have last year was like, hey, we're finding some different spots that we want to like work on and get better at. And so I don't know, Mike, if you want to talk about it from your angle and how you approach it too, but.
Just surveying parents and speaking with them, the traditional parent-teacher conference from 5 to 7 doesn't work for math parents as much, because some parents prefer virtual meetings because they can just do it in the kitchen, 10 minutes, you're out, and that's all you need. Some parents require more intense discussions. A lot of our students love to show off their work. So we're gonna transition to more of a student-led conference. I know Luis Gore has Genius Hour. He does this right before our honors assembly every year. That's half the 6th grade. So what we wanna do is each grade do something like that for a specific parent-teacher conference time. Day conferences work well for a lot of parents. So we've experimented with so many different ways of engaging parents, and I think going into this direction where we have daytime conferences, but also student-led conferences where they can showcase their work, that will help engage families better. Also having these events during the nights and during the days that are not just sit and gets, or hey, your kid's doing this XYZ, more where the staff can interact with families in a different light. I think that's what we need to more move forward.
And Dwayne, you know, just coming in here and like learning a lot of stuff really quickly, and just what you've seen so far, and like just having conversation with Lauren and Mike and maybe other staff members, like, you know, talk a little bit from your perspective.
Big piece, always trying to remove the barriers for families to have that option. So Mike and Lauren both spoke well to that. If you know, we need to have virtual option, or now having the daytime option as well, is a big piece. But one thing we also looked at is adding in like an 8th grade preview night, also setting the tone early. Like these will be the staff members you'll likely have throughout high school. Granted, some things happen, but also just setting up the future of Horace Mann on a positive foot too, to know that once we build that engagement early on, it's a little easier to come back to someone after you met them before high school. And sometimes we always want to follow up that positive instead of always calling with maybe, you know, X, Y, or Z happening at school. So just kind of listening, taking note, and looking at ways we can just get families more and more involved, because I think that's a want for everyone here in this room. So.
And at the same time, there's a certain number of hours that we have staff partake in parent-teacher conferences. So we also got to make sure if we're, you know, shifting that for any other reason or allocating a different way, how are we meeting that in another way that all staff can participate in a faceted net. I heard like 8 different examples of ways that staff can also interact with our families and support our families and get more engagement from our community too. So that's really what we're trying to figure out is how do we iterate something that has a little blend of both. But at the same time, we're really continuing to, establish that bridge for our community. So just updates for you all. And I don't know if you have questions about that or, thoughts and.
How do you find time during the day or, to have the daytime conferences? I mean, is that just a teacher's,
Great question.
We just
what you call it, hour or?
we're gonna dedicate a special day for that in our calendar.
And at the high school and the middle school level, we can do digital or virtual for our students on those days so that we can open that window up and it gives us more flexibility where, students would have, one thing that they'd have to be responsible for within that on the digital level, which is a great experience for the learning too. At the elementary, we have so many minutes built in beyond, and that's something that we need to look at too, just in general, like schedules as a full district. But they have some more time built in where they'll be able to, take that time to give it back towards conferences and our staff and make that happen too. Great question. So more of an update for everyone and just understanding of some of the things we're trying to do, but I think it's a key thing as we you talk about that community engagement in that core area as well within our KPIs. It's a crucial thing to how we can keep getting better on that. And our staff and our administrators have done a really good job of like just trying to design new things from the donuts at dawn to the coffee hours to grade level meetings. These are all really great touch points that we need to happen so that people can understand what you don't know what you don't know until you actually walk into the door, and making that welcoming environment is so crucial and key. So appreciate it. That's all I think I have for the updates in terms of the superintendent's report. Again, I'm just gonna emphasize, I'm gonna check back with Ted so we can get some of that, put that in the schedule. And then just a couple different things here, just making sure that obviously Steve, you mentioned bios and making sure we got that for the first part for the intro for the new teachers. Absolutely. Adam will figure out a way to get that schedule for the new teachers, days for them and see what makes most sense. Like one of those mornings if they can do it. I mean, again, these are all opportunities. It doesn't mean you have to be there. We're just trying to invite as many times as we can. And I would emphasize with all the administrators here, we can invite the board as, and you have to extend that offer to kind of say, hey, you want to come in? But if they come in and say, want to learn more about that, please, find ways we can, find options and for them to learn and understand more about what we do. Cool. All right. I think we can move on to new business.
Sounds good. All right, we've got quite a few items to go through today. So we'll start with our first item, which is discuss and consider FL Friendship Learning Center handbook for the school year of 2023, which was in our board packet. So I'll open if there were any questions on what was presented.
Something you want to point out that's?
Not really. I think the big changes that we made, we had probably a whole day where we just kind of sat and honestly walked through page by page. One of the things that we were trying to accomplish was to scale it back a little bit, just because number one, we want it to be a user-friendly document that parents actually want to go through and read. So we kind of took out some of the things that we felt like weren't maybe necessary and that would be involved in other communication. And then even the formatting, which I think the newest one might not be included in what you have, but just it's minor changes as far as just making sure everything fits on one page.
There was an update, I think, on collecting of technology for phones, and if I remember correctly, what was the change? I didn't.
Yeah, so I think we had put something in there at one point regarding smartwatches, and so now that there's just a lot more of even the portable watches and those devices, So I think we just included, like maybe took out iPods, because I'm not sure how many people use iPods anymore. And just tried to update some of the like actual devices that kids are using. But as far as like that safekeeping, you know, that policy hasn't necessarily changed, where kids can still turn it into the office or to their classroom teacher.
Okay.
I want to emphasize when Lauren said we, it was everybody in this room in terms of administrators. So all three levels were looking at this together, including Carrie Nitz, Brad Ranke. If I'm forgetting anybody, please let me know. But everyone said, we're trying to get consistency. This is all coming back to it. And if you look at the formats of all these, very similar formatting, and also discussions and conversations about how do we get on the same beat. So when students are going from FLC to BAMS to Horace Mann, there's some consistency there too, and we're not guessing, and especially for our parents too, so they have a better understanding when they're transitioning through. So I just want to emphasize that within all of these, there was, you know, some really great conversation between all the buildings within this as well.
Yeah, I think I noticed, and maybe I don't know which one it was, but all of them I think saw it. The policy that we just reviewed, a lot of it's built in, like some of the changes to that already, which I think is awesome.
In terms of attendance, John,
Yeah,
is that the one?
attendance, yeah.
And Brad Ranke and Carrie Nitz worked really hard on a lot of the attendance policy pieces, so definitely a shout out to them. And to that point, yeah, we tried to have as much of that kind of reflected in the handbooks as possible, because I know that can often be, you know, a big question point for a lot of our families, just because it can be confusing.
We share a lot of families across schools, and it's important that the language is consistent and the policies are consistent. So I think one of the best things about this is that a 28-page document became a 12-page document and didn't lose any meaning, you know? It still has the same policies, but it's touched up differently, and the font is real nice. So, I mean.
Dwayne, is the font nice? I mean, Dwayne has a really particular thing about fonts, so.
Horse man.
That Laura, what is it?
Laura, yep.
Yeah.
Medium bold.
Awesome. All right, any other questions on the FLC handbook? All right, then we can call for a vote. The recommendation is to approve the Friendship Learning Center handbook for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Excellent.
Can you just say roll call vote?
Oh, roll call, yeah, sorry.
Hack,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckman.
Yes. All right, our second item is discuss and consider SEL and middle school handbook for same school year 2023-2024. I think we heard a lot of it, but if there's any other questions, we can probably go right to a vote. All right, we have,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. I was told I have to say roll call then.
Hack,
Yes.
Geckman,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger.
Yes.
All right, and now Horseman High School handbook for the same school year 2023-2024. And if there's no additional questions, we'll go right to a vote.
Dwayne, do you have anything else to add to, I mean, I know you looked a little bit, I just want them to know if there was.
No, I mean, really not a ton. I mean, Mike kind of spoke to that already too, like took from 28 to 12. I think that's huge. A lot of it was just they're outdated or didn't really belong in the handbook because it's all over our website. One big one we did have was academic integrity. That was one thing we actually put into our handbook, what cheating could result in, and just some of those look forwards. Just again, it was something that was lacking, and we made sure we added it. But I mean, other than that, we really just reformatted it. We also made sure we just updated some of our like senior privilege for open campus and junior, just what the forms are, and make sure parents understand what they're signing off on for their child. But other than that, it's just a lot of simple revisions and making it, and Lauren spoke that too, it's easy to read, and I mean, hopefully it's a good tool that families are taking the time to read.
All right, need a vote for the Horseman High School handbook. I'll make that motion.
Second.
And a roll call? I'm working on it, I'll remember.
Geckerman, Jaeger,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Hack,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes.
All right, and then well, not final, but the next one is Trefford Way, for the Exceptional Mind Handbook for the school year 2023-2024.
Yeah, and I'll talk about this for a second. I think this might be a moot point though too, because as a charter school, you establish your own handbook. So I don't know if we even have the sanction to really like make that decision for them. I think it's their governance board that makes that decision. And we found, after we put this and printed this, I think it's their governance board that what we do as a board here is we grant the charter, the access. And so I think you see it here, but we don't have to vote on an approval of their handbook because that's done through their governance board. And we recognize whatever the governance board is in connection and alignment with the charter agreement, we're good to go. And so I think we have to just kind of hold on that, if I don't know, I think, not to say that we are disregarding them, but just making sure that they.
If there was a question by the board,
Yes.
it's directed right to
Tiffany, and yep, absolutely.
So this is no action taken.
This is no action, yeah.
All right. Any other questions on the board on that?
Does that make sense? I'm trying to be, within charter law, where, I don't want to overstep what we can do here too, so make sure that they have that ability as well.
All right, our next item is discuss and consider a co-curricular handbook for school year 2023-2024.
I can talk to you a little of the highlights of the changes. Basically, we just tried to bring some more clarity around what co-curriculars are, dividing the different options that students can get involved in into categories so that they understand what category they would fall in. In terms of academic eligibility, after careful conversation, we decided to take out the GPA requirement, thinking, because we look at particular students that we're reviewing right now for fall scores. Let's say they got Fs all of third quarter, but they rebounded fourth quarter. They would still not meet the GPA requirement to participate right away in the fall. So we wanted to keep it to if they have any failing grades, and that still is a higher expectation than what the WIA requires. They say 2 Fs, we're saying no Fs. So that was a change that we made. Just started to bring a little bit more clarity in terms of athletic penalties for code violation, making sure it was less gray area for tier 1, 2, and 3 violations. There were some overlapping and wanted to be very clear, like if you did a tier 1 and we outlined that, this is what would happen. In terms of attendance, we are saying that students need to be present in order to participate in practice or in a contest that day, unless there's an excused absence. And then lastly, I added an appendix here that included all the athletics paperwork that was required. That way it's a one-stop shop for students and families. And the big addition this year was including a liability waiver for the district. That was something I was surprised that was not included in the district's past paperwork. It's something that Matt and I talked about. I said, I really think we need this in here. Helps cover us as a district in case something tragic were to happen on the field or court.
Does everyone understand what that is? Okay.
Yeah,
You're aware of it.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I guess to comment that though, if the district is still found to be negligent, the waiver really doesn't
Yes.
help.
Yeah.
So, just so we understand.
And then tomorrow night, I'm just putting a plug, is
Our code meeting.
the code meeting.
So I'm excited to welcome students and families tomorrow night at Horace Mann, 6 o'clock. We'll go through the athletic code and everything they need to know about being involved in co-curriculars. And then on Thursday evening, I will be meeting with all of our fall coaches, setting them up for success for the upcoming season that will be starting very quickly here. So it's a busy week.
What days do this? Football's always the first few days of August.
Yep, August 1st, football starts. Every volleyball tryouts are gonna be August 14th. So everything's starting up around there, but a lot of excited kids coming in doing contact days right now, so that's fun to see.
Awesome. The other, Vicky, I thought maybe you had one.
It's kind of a silly question, but the attendance like that day, So I know in the past, I don't know if it was an actual policy or just kind of a said, if you have practice or a game that day, you have to be there in the afternoon. Is it all?
Yeah, it would actually have the amount of hours in there, which is something that I thought was a little odd. So I think we just want kids to be here because if we want them to be good athletes, they need to be good students as well. So they have to be here for that. So unless there's, yeah. So the whole day, unless, I mean, and I list some examples of some excused absences, we'll work with families, especially most students are very proactive.
Oh, sure.
So, our athletes tend to be some of our best students because they're trying to meet these high expectations, and hopefully with this co-curricular handbook, we can start looking at some of our other activities that students are also involved in, that will hold them to those high expectations as well.
All right. I'll look for a motion to pass the co-curricular handbook for the upcoming school year.
So,
Second.
Roll call.
Matthew,
yes.
Hack,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes. All right, our next item is to discuss and consider employment guide revisions for the school year of 2023-2024.
And I'll begin that. So what we did this year, really with the educator guide and just the guide in terms of everything else, the modifications are all just clarifications. Okay, so updates that just need a little bit more clarifying with document. Hopefully it's in here. Yeah, it's co-curricular. I'm working through all the, okay, there we go. Other than, putting the, district purpose of like what we talked about as a staff and we created as a staff, throwing those things in there. But the true updates are really just clarifications in some of those specific zones that maybe people had a little understanding or misunderstanding what those things were. I think the big thing too is like, we're gonna have to really, go through this with some of our staff members because I don't know how much we've gone through this in general. They sign it, they do walk through this, but just things like in terms of the school day and how those things operate. I think it's just some, just follow-ups somehow, some way to like get a better understanding of some of those different zones. The one that's I think more looming than everything else, and Maria, I'm gonna like get back into like our conversation world, but there was a sunset on here for the insurance benefits. And I know we talked a little bit about this at one point. I don't know if it was our last meeting or whatnot. We did check in with, here we go. Benefits will sunset June 25th with the insurance. And I don't know, Maria, if you want to talk a little bit about what we addressed with our law team in terms of why this is in there, why it was still in there, and what is the purpose of it still being, in that zone? Is it healthy to have it in here, or is it, better to look at it different ways? But I can help you out too a little bit. So
Okay.
I'll let you go. Yeah.
We talked with Bob Butler, he's the WASB attorney, and we just asked for what are the pros and cons of the sunset, because with the HRA, and this is the retirement benefit, with it sunsetting in 2025, and as people or educators are approaching that date or trying to plan to that date, they're starting to have questions like what is going to happen after 2025. Is this benefit going to be around? So when Matt and I were talking, we were thinking this sunset might be doing more harm than good. So we talked with Bob Butler, and Bob said there are definitely pros and cons. One of the cons is it might be causing people to retire earlier than what they normally would because they're looking at that sunset. And in certain climates, that might be what we want. We might want people to retire early, but we definitely don't. We appreciate the talent. It's hard to find good talent. So we want to encourage people to stay as long as they're able to stay. And Bob didn't really give us, this is what you should do, but in our conversation, what we gained from that in our conversation, it sounded like we should consider dropping that sunset. The other piece of it is, and if you can help me out with this, Matt, the vesting schedule for the sick leave portion of the
Right.
benefit.
Right.
Because there are two pieces to the HRA. And one of it is kind of a fixed benefit. It's either 42,000 for somebody that had a single policy and 60,000 for a family. And then it's $200 per sick day after they've accumulated 60. So 60. So that maximum is 12,000. So when we talked with Bob said they really, if we were to get rid of the HRA, which we're not talking about doing, but if a district were to do that, you can't take that sick leave benefit portion away from them. There's actually a vesting schedule that goes along with that portion of it.
Right, and there's
So-
a legal case, Champaign versus Milwaukee, that basically said that's set for it. You probably maybe don't know the word more than that, but yeah, and I think those are the big reasons. It's like, so we're not, again, this idea is like, if we took this out of this guide, it doesn't mean that HRA is going away for our people, and that benefit of 15 years, of service then entitles you to those things. It's basically right now creating a lot of, I feel, at least from my experience, angst for people, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna lose this after 2025. And then this idea of like, okay, do we have to come back to this and say, oh, let's go to 2035, and then someone's gonna have to go through the same thing again at some point in time. And so I just wonder, my recommendation is like, coming from kind of like what I was hearing from Bob, was like, we're creating a mindset of people being scared. And I'm gonna lose something. We don't want that. We are gonna do the best we possibly can do to provide the benefits that are competitive with every single other school district and trying to be the best. And so I think this does more harm than good for our staff. So my recommendation would be take the line out of there and take the line out of 2025. And it's just in play. HRA is in play. And when if we ever have to have the conversation, we will have a conversation. But at this point, I just don't feel it's providing any bit of uptick for the mindset of our staff and our employees. So I'm gonna throw that out there as like, this is the big component in here. That's the question for me.
And I agree with that, with the angst, and I hear certain people who are worried about that as they, they're not ready, they don't want to retire. But, and then, having been part of the board when it was instituted, I can talk about that a little bit. The idea behind the sunset was to just give the board some protection that in case things would go crazy with the budget or whatever, we had at least a stopping point that we could, but as we've found out as time went on, and since you've been here, Matt, we can do that anyway if it gets to that case. So, it actually was, well, I don't know, I think it was 2017 when it started, if I remember right. And then it was just 3 years out, the sunset date. And when we got close to 2020, we pushed it another 3 years, and it got to 2025. And the intent was always to keep pushing it forward.
Right.
But after, hearing that explanation, and I think, I agree right away, just wipe that right out of there. We don't need that line, the benefit stays. And if in a year or 5 years or 10 years, we can't afford that or want to do something different, the board at that time can just do that. So I support that 100%.
Other conversation about that?
No, I don't know why we, take just that one benefit. I mean, it could be any benefit for that
Right.
matter.
Right.
It's not just that, so. I mean, we're not gonna lose that any more or less than you're gonna lose or gain anything else. So it's just,
In effect, we do that every year with the health
well,
insurance.
it's great,
Things change because of various reasons and costs and prices, and
right?
and we just change it because it's what we feel is the best for the district financially and our employees, so.
All right. Anything else on?
No, beyond that, I guess just any questions that you might have in terms of the guide and.
So are we taking that out? I mean, I just want to know.
Yes, I would,
revisions
this,
of
my
that.
recommendation is to take that out in this guide so that we would not have that moving forward. In here,
Yeah.
we have the
Right.
HRA,
Yeah,
we gotta be very specific about that, and that's sustaining, but
There's no benefit, now,
Right.
It's moved, it doesn't matter if it sunsets or not, or we move the date or not, because we can still do it if we want, so.
All right. So then I guess the recommendation that Matt just provided would be what we're voting on. So discuss and consider employment guide revisions for the school year, including that recommendation. So if I can get a motion for that.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
And roll call?
Hack,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger.
Yes.
Beckerman.
Yes. All right, our next item is discuss and consider extra duty letter of assignments.
just gonna roll that quickly. Okay. Here we go. This is what this is. If you have questions, let me know, but this is kind of where we have right now currently within our extra duty letters of assignments for the district.
There was no additions to it, it just,
No, it's
Yeah.
remained the same.
any questions on that from the board? All right, then the vote would be on discuss and consider what's being presented in the packet and on the monitor up there for extra letter of assignments. So look for a motion.
So,
I'll second. Then roll call?
Jaeger,
yes.
Beckerman,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Hack,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes.
All right, our next item is discuss and consider fall 2023 coaches.
And Jillian's just coming into this, so I'll try to be as best understanding of this, so. No real changes other than what has already been in there for them.
I'm reviewing, the board have any questions? No. All right. Are there any questions from the board?
Matt, just a really quick question, was this changed to allow for that, the, base salary, or the base going to 43,000?
I think when they established it, that's what it was, when they had it already established to that, but I'd have to check for that for 100%, I'm not sure. I know this was, I think Matt Bertram did some of the work on this one with setting that up.
All right, then I guess we'll look for a motion to pass the fall 2023 coaches. Extra.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Matthew. Matthew,
Yes.
did you say yes? I didn't hear you. Okay. Jaeger,
Yes.
Beckerman,
Yes.
Hack,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes.
All right, our next item is discuss and consider standards. I think Matt, that's you.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna flip it to Adam a little bit here too, just to, walk through. This came back because I think, Rick, you brought it from a meeting that, hey, we gotta make sure that we hit this on the annual in terms that we're making sure that we're hitting and approving our curriculum and how it's related to the standards. So I don't know, Adam, if you wanna talk for a couple minutes about that.
Yeah, no, and we have done this, typically, I think we, had this on, I want to think like September usually, we have that review, but yeah, definitely state mandate that, as a local control state, but the school board approves the standards that we use as a district. And we make recommendations to you, and then, we develop our, teaching and learning around, obviously those standards is where it all starts. So, what you have, I believe, from that board, and I don't know, I don't think that's, is there something on there, Matt, or?
I don't think so. I think that was the last document on here,
Oh,
but
okay. What?
I think in the packet,
Is there a
there's a
link in
click,
there?
yeah, there's a
Oh,
link that says click here.
Yeah,
I can get to it to the note,
in your,
School district.
it's
Yeah,
in
so
your
that link just
recommendations.
goes to our website, which is another kind of state piece of, hey, having those standards and, we're working towards out there for anyone to see. So, if you go to NFPL standards.
Thank you, yeah.
Right-hand side there. So basically, each of those is just a click to what standards we teach to in our district. Nothing that's changed from the past couple of years. We did have a few years ago that changed with science standards. There's been a shift there. And then also the state had tweaked their ELA and math standards a few years back. And we had adopted those, but this year there's nothing new. And just kind of, the state's always reviewing standard at the state end. We don't have to adopt what the state puts out. Those are always just sort of models typically. And on our website there, we go with what the state has because it's obviously advantageous for us to kind of be in line with what the state's doing in those state assessments. So nothing different, nothing beyond kind of those state recommendations as far as the standards that we're working from.
But anybody can access what we do right here.
Yep.
Okay.
That's kind of a question off to the side, that new reading bill, is that gonna affect our curriculum substantially or not too much?
Yeah, we've already had some conversations, Lauren and I, about some of that, say at the elementary level. So I think we were kind of heading down and rethinking some things that we were doing, but really that reading bill is tied to the standards. I think one of the things that when you start talking using educational language is sometimes the word curriculum, people think it means whatever tool we're using, whereas curriculum is the tool and the standards and how we go about teaching and all those pieces. So yeah, some of the tools we have may change, just like they could for any content areas, but the standards are really aligned to what that bill is talking about. But there's been some tools that kind of stray people from that is kind of where I think the impetus for that bill coming to our state happened, because those things are all already in the standards if you look at those. But Matt and I were just talking today actually about kind of a lot of districts I think just took some of the tools and used those as, kids will magically learn how to read through these tools, which isn't necessarily what we're discovering now, and in other states as well.
And more to come, and that's where we have to, dissect that and, figure out how do we best help and support our staff and our kids as along the way, because there's going to be some things that we just don't know, and yet learning from it and how we can, best gravitate to that next level. And I honestly think there's some, good things that are going to come from this as well, in terms of, when we look at reading and even our math scores. I mean, there's going to be some, if we start adopting the right, appropriate, great things that are going to help and push us forward, there's going to be some good stuff that's going to move forward for us in those angles. So.
All right, any other questions? All right, then the motion would be to adopt the standards that was just presented, or they're on the website, the 2023-2024. If I can look for a motion for that.
Is this curriculum standards? It just says standards adoption.
Yeah, these will be our academics.
Academic.
Probably more.
Okay. I don't want to put something in here that's incorrect, but it just seems incomplete. So, okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call?
Matthew,
Yes.
Hack,
Yeah.
Goldowski, Jaeger,
Yes.
Beckerman.
Yes. All right, our next item is discuss and consider 4K partnership agreements and leases for AvoCap and Arts for Kids.
Yeah, so, sitting down and just looking at the amount that our two entities that used to rent out the ELC spaces, and then and seeing if they were in comparison with, where our world's at, in terms of some of those races. We also looked at a lot of different things from our gas bills, our electric bills, all the water bills. And obviously they're a partner with us and we want to keep them as a partner, but at the same time, you know, we also have to try to hit as close to black as we possibly can with some of that and be in line with some of the other things that we're trying to do in terms of usage and cost per rooms and things like that. So, we were proposing a little bit different for Arts for Kids, raising that up about like 10% in terms of their 4,200 to like 4,600. I met with them on Friday. They agreed to that. They were, understandable. Like we get what this is going, but I want to make sure that, we're all good with that too. The same with the Head Start too, is look at a 10%, increase in terms of their rent for that month. Because when we look at, even when we look at our usage right now, even if we looked at $25, per hour and how many rooms that they have, and we're still significantly under, including, the amount that we are actually, affording for the gas, the electric, all those things that have increased, over time. But at the same time, we didn't want to raise too much where we're also trying to get rid of a partner and people who are going to be in our community that can be part of it. And they were, again, I can only speak for Arts for Kids. I'm meeting with Head Start on Wednesday, and we're going to talk through the same thing, but understandable of like, these are changing times and we got to make sure that we, can keep these buildings running so that they can use the buildings too for our kids as well. So that's literally in a nutshell, increasing that and looking at ways that we can get a little bit closer to the black when we look at the overall budget while maintaining relationships. Any
They're getting
questions?
an upgrade to the facility,
What's that?
and there's a nice upgrade to
And
the facility.
there's an upgrade to that facility.
And is it, I know last year, I remember we had this conversation, I think you had said something, Vicky, and I apologize now, but Arts for Kids has multiple, like 7 classrooms or something?
They do, they have 7.
And Head Start has 2
2.
maybe?
Yes.
Is it prorated?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Is that
done both those.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Any questions? All right, then the motion would be for the 4K partnership agreements and leases for Avocap and Arts for Kids.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I vote on that. My wife works for Avocap.
Just abstain.
Okay. All right, then roll call.
Hawk,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman.
And abstain. All right, the next one is discuss and consider graduation date and time.
So here we go, everybody. It's 10 or not 9:15 on Michigan time, 10:15, so from the weekend. So, just further consideration, talking to more folks, talking to more people on the way, and just looking at calendar wise too, in terms of like next year and just in seeing this, our recommendation, and again, we can have questions and conversations about this, is really to look at the Thursday night, the May 23rd as that graduation night, starting at 6:30 to bring people in. And a couple different reasons for this. One, the following day on Friday, students are not in session. Okay, so that is students are not there at all. That's all students. Our staff will be still in that time. When we looked at the surveys that we sent out to our staff was more in favor of the Thursday than a Friday when we looked at those specific 2 days. The other thing that we got to take into consideration that weekend is Memorial Day weekend. So you're looking at, for some families, after Thursday night, they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday to vacation, and that could be a small vacation that they could get out and do that, and or graduation parties, bringing people in. I think also too, if we set this date now and people need to get this out to families to be there on that Thursday night, we can still make that happen and hopefully they can get there. It's in the evening, so we're not talking about during the day or whatnot, so that might have a better opportunity for people to get into that area. So that is our recommendation from the school world in terms of what makes the most sense for next year. And I'm indicating next year as a 1 year and then review, like how does this look for the years to come? But that's where we're at right now.
Well, I'll start. And I know I've explained several times my feelings on this in the 28 years, consecutive years now that we've solved a lot of problems by having it on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And then letting everybody know that that's what we do and everybody makes it work and plans around it. I think all of our kids and Vicky soon will have graduated at 1 o'clock on Sunday. And I guess, first of all, questions. What about doing it like we always have done the week after Memorial Day? Why can't we do it on June 2nd, Sunday? And have the kids, the last day of school for K-11 is the 31st of May. So that's a Friday and we could do it right away on Sunday. We've been letting the seniors out earlier, but why do we have to do that? Why can't they have their Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off the week before and come back, finish up just like the other kids are doing the week after, May 30th, 31st or so, or 29th, 30th, and have their graduation practice on Friday and do the ceremony on Sunday.
And all I can speak of is like why, seniors go earlier than, and not just in this district, but others. It's just that processing. They're done with what they have to do. They go through that and then getting onto that fresh start and figuring out how do you finish the school year with the rest of the crew. And that's really kind of like the impetus for, going a week early. I don't know if Dwayne or anybody else wants to come in on that in terms of why the week early for seniors, if there was anything else, in terms of like why they would do that in the general, but.
And typically past practice, they had achieved what they needed to for their graduation requirements, and that was kind of a done deal. And I mean, the longer you keep them, if they have attained, I guess, what they needed to, I guess you also run that risk of, well, I don't really have much to lose right now, or I've done what I had to. Could that lead to more senior pranks, things like that too? Not that that's the only reason, but I mean, it just comes to a point where they've achieved what they've done is why I've been told in the past too, why typically they're done a little earlier before the others and allows to make sure that those others can transition through as well. But that's just from my past experience.
And then obviously the June 2nd's after everybody else is done too. So you're pushing on that envelope of that. So.
And you said the staff, or you surveyed parents?
Parents preferred Friday evening out of the two, because we gave them two options. We said the Thursday or Friday.
Well, I have a problem with that too, and with all due respect, if the Sunday at 1 o'clock wasn't an option, they were forced to choose between Thursday and Friday, you're not gonna get anybody that says they wanna do it on Sunday. But in the past, when we've had troubles, the different groups that came, and when we changed it, to the Thursday, and then the people who had everything planned for Sunday came to complain that, it's, we represent the community, I guess, in certain ways, and a lot of times graduations as much for mom and grandma and dad and family as it is for the students. I know it's their graduation and it's their biggest day of their career too, but to have people having to get done with work and race home, get ready and come over to school, people complained about that in the past. Sunday seems to be, as far as, what's the word, not demeanor, but it seems like a day that's set aside to be, that fits a graduation ceremony, the solemnness of that, and then family all gathers, family that travels. If the family does a party that weekend, they can be there for both. Although shouldn't be worried about when people have their parties, but if you do it on Thursday, out of town guests, are they gonna come Thursday and then not come back on Saturday or 2 weeks later? I don't know, just all little things that we've heard in the past when groups came to try to change it from Sunday at 1 o'clock. So I just think it's worked well for, again, 28 years. If we don't want the seniors out for that long a time before the actual ceremony where we still have some control over them, then I don't know why. I think an easy fix is to move their last day up a little bit after the Memorial Day weekend, and then that takes the whole Memorial Day question out of the picture, so, again, I'll give it my best shot here in explaining why we kept it that way and what some of the reasons why we stuck with that. When finally, I think after, I was a brand new board member, only on a year or so, and the board and the superintendent at the time just said, we gotta get past this. If we're gonna be fighting about this every year on which date or that, let's set it for Sunday. Well, at 2:00, but we did change it to 1, but that's insignificant. And that's what it'll be going forward, and everybody come to expect that. And that's just when we had graduation. Last year, and one other quick comment, last year I kind of watched for some of the surrounding districts, and Fond du Lac has always done it on Thursday night for years. I think some of the bigger district high schools have done it on Thursdays, but some of them around us do it on Sunday afternoon also. I know Rosendale Brandon does that. I think Campbell's Court did it on Sunday. But, again, not that we have to do what they do or vice versa, but, so that's my pitch. I would like, the hard part about saying it's for just this year is that then next year, there's misunderstanding about, well, why are we going back? We did it this year, and confusion, and then we get people coming in to, once again, to complain that didn't work for us. You know, we need to change it. So I'll stop rambling now on that. So I don't support changing it to a different date.
I think the only other thing too, just to add on to it, like there's no sporting events on that Thursday. We already went through that and walked through that just so everybody knows that it wouldn't conflict. If you go a week, later, you can, get into playoffs and other things like that that are going on as well. I mean, not to say that it would happen on Sunday. I'm just saying if you did a Thursday or Friday or anything like that, but on that night specific, there's nothing going on in terms of that. So,
And, there's been a couple situations where track athletes and lacrosse have raced home in order to get the graduation ceremony. And that,
right,
once in a while, that type of stuff happens.
Right.
It's not perfect, but. So.
Are there questions or feedback?
I have a hard time keeping those seniors extra days, especially after Memorial Day, and make it senioritis starting in January probably.
Yeah, that'd be it.
I don't know why we can't go from Labor Day to Memorial Day and just get done with that. That's my whole thing.
But
Seriously.
I mean, again, it's just all our personal preferences. I don't like Sunday. I didn't like it when my kids graduated from here, and it was a mess for us on Sunday with family because we have a lot of family in town who don't want to sit through the graduation ceremony, So, I mean, everybody's got their own point of view. I'm perfectly fine with moving it. Especially keeping the seniors, I would not want them to get past Memorial Day when they're done. And I just think it's caused problems, but that's just, again, I have no basis for that other than my opinions.
I don't have a preference one way or the other, really, but I'm okay with moving it up.
Yeah, I don't have a preference either. I had the privilege of going to numerous graduation parties that had parents of gonna be seniors this year. So it's a smaller sample pool than you probably received, but it's just that class. And not one person, and I included Sunday, not one person said keep it Sunday for this year because of the scenario we're in. They all either said Thursday or Friday, and I can't remember the split. So for that, I'm in favor of moving it because that's the families it's gonna impact. And it's a small portion, but it's a sample pool of that group.
My comment is, I agree with Steve to the point where Sundays, it's been Sundays, it's tradition. I get that it's Memorial Day weekend and keeping kids, and I get that. I guess one of the points that he brought up too is if you're really going to survey families, you need to give them the choices, not just Thursday, Friday. That Sunday should have been on there, in my opinion. So I'm not exactly sure we really got the correct response. I don't know if that's the right phrase to say, but anyway, so I'm not exactly sure where I stand on it, to be honest with you.
Well, we approved the calendar already, didn't we?
We did, but that was not part of it. We purposely.
That wasn't, but
Yeah.
the senior release date was part of it.
That, no, that's not on the
It's not
calendar.
on there either.
Only the last day of May 31st. So.
So,
And if we want to, there's a way to avoid the Labor Day weekend and that long gap by moving the seniors' last day forward. But, I mean, there's always a last day for seniors, whether it's the 23rd or the 30th or whatever, but just a thought.
Any other feedback? Okay, we'll move forward with the vote as it sits for, the graduation date for that Thursday. Did you say a time?
May 23rd. I put 6:30 on here just at this point because it gives a little bit of time for people to get home. Considering we run about an hour and a half, so you'd be done by 8.
Okay, so Thursday, May 23rd at 6:30 PM for graduation for this coming school year. And then we would revisit for future school years. So I'll look for a
Well, that
motion.
shouldn't be part of the motion, so that it'll be, we have to do it every year anyway, but I'm gonna specifically say we'll look at it again.
I mean,
the
yeah,
following-
it's up to, I think if we're gonna revisit it, I would be comfortable if we're gonna look at it next year to put that in there.
Okay.
And I think that could be part of the calendar conversation now that when approving the calendar, Steve.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
And then roll call?
Matthew,
Yes.
Hawk,
No,
Bobowski, no, Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes. All right, our next item is to discuss and consider pay increases for 2023, 2024, which were shared earlier. And, just to clarify, Maria, Matt, the recommendation is 5%, what you showed on the bottom
For educators.
for educators, and then, okay, so the grouping that, maybe Matt, if you wanted to bring that up real quick.
Sure.
All right. And down a little bit more, one more.
Yeah. Recommendation, is that what you want to read?
Yeah, so recommendation for 5% increase for all contracted employees, and then 2 cell increase for school admin assistants, district admin assistants, payroll finance, 1 cell increase for LPN. The hold, currently on the, sped aides, supervisor aides, instructional academic support, and custodial maintenance. And then also the maximizing, is that included in this, or would that not be
That's a separate.
separate?
That's the next-
That's the last one,
that's just
okay,
information.
yep, so we'll stop, that's the next one, yeah.
yeah,
So those 4 items that I just had said about.
but then we talked about.
A stipend for that last part, that's.
Correct, yeah, that we were gonna put on August agenda, right?
Mhm. Yep, and on the first, the 5% increase would be for educators, not all contracted employees.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the stipend we would look at in August. And, I can add the LPN therapy support as well, the grant portion.
Okay.
How do we reconcile that though with the fact that not all the administrators might, that you're gonna do different with some of them, or you talked about, right, they're not all getting 5%, they're, you know, without.
They're all getting 5%, okay? But then there's some differentiation in terms of based on meeting where we're more align with other school districts in terms of like what that cost would be.
Right, but shouldn't that somehow be in the motion too that we're gonna vote on? Because as it's worded there, everybody's just gonna get 5%.
Well, that was gonna be switched to educator contracts, right?
I thought we were having a separate meeting on to discuss administrators or not.
I didn't hear that, but I mean, we can sit down and do that if we need to, but you know, I think it was 5% across, and then what we're trying to do is there's specifics that we mentioned before in closed session, some of those.
So would we
Areas.
come back then and approve the addition to the ones that are above 5%?
Yes.
So right now it'd be 5%, and then we'd come back?
Yes.
Does that meet that?
Yeah,
Meaning that's what we're approving today is the 5%, and then any adjustment after would be, to what Rick said, come back at a future date.
okay. That would work.
Got that? Thank you.
So the 5%, we can just leave that for all contracted employees.
So what'd that be?
But then-
Administrators and educators, right?
Administrators and educators.
I think, maybe we could have the clerk read the final motion before we vote. After you figure it out.
Right. Go back to the whole stipend thing. What are we doing with that?
So it's a hold currently on those roles that Matt has highlighted right there, and revisit in the August meeting for a stipend.
Okay.
Yep.
So the 5% is for administrators and educators,
Correct,
okay? And then the 2 cell increase
correct,
and the 1 cell increase,
correct.
okay?
Would you like to read that in full then, or? Okay, so before, if you wanted to read that in full, what you just said, or I can, it's up to you.
Okay. We'll approve pay increases for the 23-24 school year consisting of, I'm just gonna say the top 3 recommendations with 5% increase for all educators and administrators.
Mhm.
2 cell increase for school administrative assistants, district administrative assistants, payroll, finance, and 1 cell increase for LPN therapy support with stipends to be determined. Paid by grant if that needs to be in there.
I don't think that.
I don't think
Just
that
the 1
needs to be
cell would
in
be
there.
right?
Yeah,
Okay. All right,
Okay.
before we move any further, any questions on that, or?
I'm okay with the way it reads so far, but I think we need another closed session to discuss those other administrators.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we have to have a discussion on Matt as well, right? I mean, we're covering the 5%, but we should have a discussion as a board on
Yeah.
if there's anything we want to do.
So maybe we could look at a closed session prior to the meeting with Ted if we do that earlier, or that, would that work for everyone? That way we're using one day.
Let's get the motion on it. Taken care of, and we can discuss it.
Any other questions on what was read in the motion? And then I'll look for a motion to approve those 3 items.
So,
Second.
Matthew,
yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Cock,
yes.
Oldowski, yes.
And before we go to that last one, good on, everyone agree with meeting prior in a closed session? Okay.
I got that. Jot it down, thank you.
All right, and our final item is discuss and consider maximize revenue limits, which is called out on that bottom item, and I think there's some more detail above. And maybe Maria, if you wanted to share a quick highlight again.
Sure, and this will actually come to vote again in October at our annual meeting. So if you aren't comfortable doing this right now, because I don't have an actual number, I really wanted to get your feedback though on maximizing the revenue limit. So so right now we're at $8.15. That's where our mill rate is right now. the mill rate, according to the budget right now, would be about somewhere between $8.66 and $8.69, which is subject to change based on the information that we received from DPI as late as October. So, this was all brought into this conversation because we needed to decide on the raises and if those raises were affordable. And they are affordable if we maximize that revenue limit. So the vote actually does come in October on the actual.
I was gonna add
levy.
that we could give you direction that that's what we may support or not support, and then the
Yes.
final board vote comes when the final
Yes.
vote comes.
Yes.
Okay. And my direction would be yes, that we should do that.
Next one.
Anyone else? Feedback, comments?
I agree. How else are we gonna do that? I have to do it.
Okay, so then there's no motion today?
Correct.
We just
No
hold
action.
till October or no action? All right. All right, that's our last new business item. Final one is adjourning the meeting, so just look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
And roll call.
Matthew,
Yes.
Obatsky, yes, Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Pop.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.